I will tell you though, in fairness, there are some advisors that sit in those seats and that's exactly what they want to do.
Yeah.
Like they want to be a supporting role.
Yeah.
They don't want to be the lead actor.
Agreed.
And that's totally okay because you need that support infrastructure. So it's just a function of figuring out like, what's your purpose? What do you want to be doing in this business?
Yeah.
And then align with it.
Hey everyone, I have Ryan Shanks in the podcast studio today. Ryan, love that you made it to Austin, man. How's it going?
Man, very well. Thank you.
Awesome. Super excited to have you here, brother. Really pumped to talk about the topic related to advisors and what their options are as far as considering wirehouses, captive BDs, independent BDs, just going fully independent. I know that you have a wealth of knowledge, and maybe where we start is just getting a sense of like, what's your background? I know that you've been like a sports agent pretty much for financial advisors for a number of years, and you started a tech company called FA Match. So I think it'd be just useful for the listeners to get a sense of like who you are, where you came from, what you're focused now, and then we can kind of dig into some of the real cool stuff around what advisors are doing.
Yeah, no, and listen, man, thank you for having me. Austin's one of my favorite places. Spent 12 years here. I remember about half of it. But my journey has been, I got into this space doing financial advisor recruiting about 20 years ago. And I cut my teeth, cold calling financial advisors half the day, calling financial services companies the other half, and seeing if I could match the two together to make money.
Love it.
And that's kind of how I got into it. I realized early on, like advisors were being told who they should talk to and weren't being asked what was missing. And so that really kind of created my calling to be like, gosh, I really want to represent the advisor side of the ledger. They have the trusted relationships with the clients. And so that's really how I kind of evolved. I worked in two broker dealers running their national recruiting, their M&A business. So helping, OSJs grow. And then I decided to spin out and create my consulting business where I was like, I'm going to be a sports agent.
How long were you independent for as a consultant?
Still running that. So I started that business in 2006. And that's where I said, you know what, I'm going to flip kind of traditional recruiting on its head. Instead of representing the firm, I'm going to represent the advisor. And that's where kind of the sports agent thing came into play. So it's an exclusive engagement that I do when I work with an advisor. So like we're not stepping on anyone else's toes. And that's how I've really gotten into the space and always had kept my ear down to what's important to the advisor. Because I feel like when you look out into the ecosystem, firms are sort of commodities. They come and they go. But that advisor and the sticky relationship with the clients is like, that's the core.
Yeah, I feel like if you're not independent too, then you're just kind of hawking whatever the employer or the broker dealer or whatever it is has to offer, right? You can't really represent your client in the right way. So love the fact that you went independent. What options do advisors have in today's environment? You've been at the game for a while now, 10 plus years. What are you seeing as far as the trends in advisor M&A, advisor movement? We've seen more people flow to the independent broker dealer channel. We've seen more people just stick with the wirehouse, more people just going fully independent. Like, what are you seeing in the marketplace and what are you recommending to folks?
Yeah, it is all over the map. And so, first of all, there's not enough new advisors coming into the business. So we're going to end up dealing with a very top-heavy market, which we're already starting to deal with. So continuity is like, that's the big theme everybody's talking about.
It's a hot topic.
I'm going to buy you out, like you're older. So it's really trying to figure out how do you bring people into the early side of the business. These wirehouses, banks, insurance companies have got that training infrastructure. So it's almost like a necessary evil. Get into the business, learn the business. And then ideally, if you want to spin out, and kind of put your own spin on it and call it your business and serve your client your way, you have those options. In terms of trending and what I'm seeing is it's been interesting for a while is the capital that's coming into this space from really creative avenues.
Yeah.
I've interfaced with private equity, family offices. There's companies that are coming out and they're really propping money in and saying, I don't really need to be controlling. I just want to help you scale. And then in terms of advisor evolution and movement, it's really interesting. We've been tracking stats and we're seeing, at least from our platform, that the largest number of advisor users that are registering are with an RIA.
Interesting.
And they're looking at leaving the RIA. So when I start speaking about that, they're like, well, I'm servicing $150 million. I'm making cash compensation to service them, but I have no equity. So I keep bringing clients on and growing the company. I just make my cash comp, and I really want participation.
So these are salaried or profit share advisor, revenue share advisors that are not equity owners in the firm. And they're like, why am I doing all the work and not really reaping any of the value, the enterprise value?
But they're in that really in-between space where they don't have the confidence and the wherewithal to go and leave and build it themselves. So they're like, I'd like to take the clients that I'm working with and go find another firm, but one that's open.
Yeah.
Like we will allow equity participation.
Yeah. We've actually created a model that facilitates that, and I'm sure there's tons in the space. I mean, basically allowing advisors to take their business, merge in, they own 100% of the relationships, and then there's a split on revenue for shared infrastructure, marketing, operations, compliance, tech, all the whole nine. What are you seeing as like good options in the marketplace for, let's say that, advisor that you were just talking about that's looking to get some equity in their book and, have some support, but maybe not go fully independent? Or is your recommendation in certain cases to go fully independent?
It's a risk path. So if the advisor that I'm working with and going down that path, I'm really helping them if they're in a captive environment, right? And I've got several clients right now that are in wirehouses that are breaking away, but they're completely different circumstances. One's like, I want to build it. I want it to be my brand. I want to operate it.
Yep.
So then you start talking about, okay, so we've reached that conclusion. Now, where do you align? Is it going to be an RIA? Okay, where do you custody? What's that partnership look like? What's the model look like?
Yeah.
What do you want to build? Do you want to attract other advisors to it? So as I work with these advisors, I'm like, look, it's like chess.
Yeah.
The first move anybody can make, but it's setting yourself up to have the fifth or the sixth move that's a win.
And I think you're trying to figure out as an advisor, right? And that's like the what are you building question. Like how big is the castle that you're trying to build? Do you have walls around the castle that are wooden and, you've got a little team in there that's kind of farming the lands and you've got, a couple $100 million? Or are you building like a huge castle with like archers on the walls and you're the king and you've got like this huge army? So like trying to figure out like what are these advisors actually building? What are they trying to do? Are they trying to take over the world and, roll up a bunch of others? Or are they just, trying to build a lifestyle business? Like what trends are you seeing in that regard? Are you finding that most advisors are building for lifestyle, building for income, or are they building for enterprise value and trying to?
It's a combination. It's a combination. It's there are advisors that are in a captive environment that just they grow frustrated with that environment where the client's not the top priority.
Mm-hmm.
So the analogy that I've always used when you look at the independent landscape and the captive landscape is the independent landscape, the most important factor is the client. And everything that happens from there is tied to that.
Yep.
When you're in a captive wirehouse type of environment, it's flipped upside down.
Yeah.
The revenue and profitability comes from the client, but it's almost like, oh, that's a commodity. Bring in more of those.
Yep.
And we're going to make X off of it.
We're going to monetize them through every single business line.
And so the advisor has to reach sort of that tipping point where, I'm done. I don't want to be here. I'm not sure I want to go build it, but I might be willing to go plug into it and join it. And so I work with the advisor saying, listen, you could plug into a great RIA, for example, where, at 3:00 in the afternoon, you could leave to go coach your kid's team because you're not responsible for compliance and technology and payroll and, right? Someone else is dealing with it.
Yep.
And you could theoretically get a nice bump in income, have ownership of that book, have equity participation. So you get all those upsides, but you still able to maintain sort of the balance of your life.
Yeah.
And then if it's someone who's really just kind of an alpha, like, no, I want to build it, I want to grow it, I want to scale it, I want to be able to go out and sell it to other advisors to get them to buy into the value prop, they're on a completely different tier.
Got it.
And at that point, it's really like, okay, so it's great that you want to do this today. Let's talk about in 3 or 5 years, what do you want this to be, right? Do you want to be tracking other advisors? Because these are considerations, right? So if it's somebody that wants to recruit advisors, I'm like, well, do you want to be fee only? Right. So what about the advisor you get in front of that's got a 50-50 buck?
Yeah.
You're saying, listen, you could come join my company, but half of your revenue you have to leave.
So
you got to think about that.
Yeah. We decided to go fee-based because we feel that, especially for business owners, insurance is a big component of what they need help with, like risk management. Even some of the tax mitigation strategies require insurance. Insurance companies have done a good job looking at the tax code and figuring out products that can help, shift that liability out in a number of years and reduce tax burdens for that particular audience. I think, I would view that as a huge hurdle if you're trying to recruit and you're fee only and the universe that you're trying to recruit from is like 50-50 or 75-25. What are you seeing out of most of these firms that are looking to recruit? Are they fee only firms that are looking to aggregate folks, or are they a little bit more flexible with their fee schedule? Does it vary? Like what are you seeing right now?
So let's flip it on the other side of the ledger. Again, going back to sort of our user base and what we're seeing, and it's early. We launched in February, so trends are what they are. But our largest firm adopter, sort of getting on the platform, is RIA. So, so it's interesting. RIAs are sort of the most aggressive at wanting to recruit, but advisors with RIAs are the most aggressive at wanting to leave. So clearly there's something that's not working out in the formula.
Strange.
So I'm just analyzing it and going, okay, well, what is it?
Is it incentives, do you think? Just like poor firm incentives to align the value creation with the advisor?
I think it's principles of these RIAs that are very self-serving, and they're not thinking about the value chain and these advisors and what real value they bring to retention and maybe, capturing more asset flow from the same client.
Yeah.
And they're just saying, well, I'm paying you X and the margin I get. And that's where those advisors are like, so it's a cultural thing, it's an ego thing, and if you're going to create an ensemble and you're going to really align people to be supportive, like you got to be really.
We also have to provide support too. I feel like a lot of firms, they provide access to. Like that's the big thing that I see with a lot of these aggregation platforms, whether it's a BD or an RIA. It's always, I provide access to, and then they curate some, list of technology providers, and they do access to compliance experts and support and all these things. But really what advisors need, from what I've seen in the marketplace, having consulted hundreds of them, is they need marketing and media support. So they need to be able to get in front of more people. They need to be more visible. They need more authority so that people, when they come into on the top of the funnel, they're more likely to work with that advisor, and that advisor makes more money. So there needs to be some type of a proactive marketing strategy that doesn't involve the advisor always having to go out and eat what they kill. And then the second thing that I've noticed is most firms are reactive in their client service. So they just wait for their clients to come to them and say, hey, we need this, instead of being proactive and defining the client experience on the front end. I mean, I'm a big believer that wealth management is really just one big project management nightmare that only one person really cares about, and that's the advisor. And it's a lifelong project management. You're basically project managing someone's finances for their whole life. And the advisor usually isn't well equipped to deal with that responsibility, because the advisor wants to build relationships. Like, yes, some of them are very detail oriented and they're good with follow through. But I find that a lot of these large firms, they spend, millions of dollars on a Salesforce build, but they're missing the point. It's not the technology, it's the actual methodology and the delivery of the experience. And most advisors in most firms aren't defining on the front end what a client experience needs to look like. How many times you meet with these folks? What are you talking about? What is your process on the back end to turn them into raving fans through events, through, marketing and touch points? So, what I've seen, and I think probably the reason a lot of these RIAs and advisors at RIAs or independent broker dealers are unhappy is they think that the high payout model or a higher payout model is actually what they want. But in reality, they just need more full service support. So I think the wirehouses nailed it in the sense that they provide access to an expert team. They've got sales and marketing training, full business development. They've got, leads coming in through their marketing, things of that nature. But the misalignment is in the fact that they obviously flip the model on its head and they sell product instead of putting it as a human first model. I think the RAs and these firms that are trying to aggregate advisors are still trying to figure out how to build the business that actually supports the advisor instead of the other way around.
Yeah. Well, and what you said about the client engagement of being sort of active or passive is where firms are screwing up recruiting, right? They're just kind of like, oh, I want to grow and I want to recruit. It's like, okay, so what's your model? Well, who are you looking for? What's the right advisor avatar?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, what's the right fit for your firm? Well, just somebody with a heartbeat and a book of business. Really? Like that's really your goal? That's what you're trying to do?
Yeah.
And you try to sit down with them to say, look, you need to be very intentional about this, right? Who are you trying to find? What's the client you're trying to interface and service? And then go out and communicate that.
Yeah.
So
I feel like a lot of firms don't do that. I mean, what I've seen is a lot of firms try and turn the advisor into an annuity for the firm. They're basically like, hey, we're going to wrap these platforms and services and easy things to do together, and we're going to sell it to the advisor, and we're going to get a cut of their revenue, and then the advisor is going to go out and support the growth of our business. So I think it, again, needs to just be flipped around so that the advisor is supported in their quest for independence, and they're creating their own enterprise value while supporting the firm. But the firm is really there to, again, create the platform and the visibility for the advisor to grow and to flourish.
But I will tell you, though, in fairness, there are some advisors that sit in those seats, and that's exactly what they want to do.
Yeah.
Like they want to be a supporting role.
Yeah.
They don't want to be the lead actor. And that's totally okay because you need that support infrastructure. So it's just a function of figuring out, like, what's your purpose? What do you want to be doing in this business?
Yeah.
And then align with it.
So what do you? So I have pretty strong opinions on the fact that I think this is a team-based business. I have 6 personalities that I've kind of defined as far as for financial advisors. I think you've got the rainmaker personality that loves to, be in the community, close deals. They're great. You put them in front of a client, and 2 seconds later, maybe not 2 seconds, but through the sales process, they're able to convert them into a paying client of the firm. And then you've got your foragers, your connectors that are out there building relationships. You've got I call them guardians, which are the support advisors who just build trust really quickly. They love people. They love building, lifelong relationships, and usually they're experts in financial planning. Then you've got your architects and integrators and stuff like that. But what are your thoughts as far as, advisors trying to build the business on their own versus teaming up and trying to form collaborative partnerships with others that have maybe complementary skill sets?
I think a lot of that psychology comes from the environment you're in. Sort of you're in a captive environment, it's very much in sort of a silo. This is my business, these are my clients, we're competing. When you get into an independent model, it's a holistic approach. The client care and service and delivery is what matters. It's not about you, it's not about me, it's about us. And so I think it's just a shift there. And so sometimes you find that an advisor sitting in a captive environment has all the right DNA. They're just that's just where they're working in the business.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when you talk about that, you talk about teaming, they're like, oh, well, I don't want other people interfacing with my client.
Yeah.
It's like, well, hold on. Like, do you want to be doing all these things and wearing all these hats? Because someone else could do a better job at this. And if there's 2 or 3 touch points for this client, is that a more meaningful engagement?
Absolutely.
Is that client going to say, well, you know what? I've got $2 million that's sitting over here, but I now feel like I've got sort of this comprehensive approach. You can take care of all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. So what are your thoughts? You mentioned something I think is really important to talk about, and this idea that we don't have a lot of new talent entering the business. There's not a lot of people that graduate from college and say, man, I can't wait to be a financial advisor and call my family at Merrill Lynch. Like, it's just not really, because they can go into tech, they can make 75, 80 grand a year selling software to people, in the Bay Area, or they can work anywhere now. You don't have to be in a big city to make good money. What are your thoughts on how we can flip that around and attract more young talent to the industry? Do you think that's something that we can do? Have you seen anyone that's doing that well?
I think it's something that we can do. I think it's something that we're not doing a good enough job at. Mm-hmm. I think there's some outliers. There's organizations like TD Ameritrade and Schwab that are really trying to engage. But a lot of times what I see is they're engaging and they're getting this younger generation to come to conferences. But then I'm talking to some of these advisors that are at these conferences, and they're like, well, they put on a reception. We all got together in a room, but we're not really in the weeds. And so then I'll do follow-up with them like, look, and a lot of my conversations with these young generations coming out of colleges, you're young with no experience, CFP, right? The planning, or you're educated to do that. Here's how you need to go sell yourself to the independent firm that's looking at you going, gosh, you're going to be an operating expense. You're not bringing any clients.
Yeah, how much revenue?
So then you sit there and go, well, you know what? I'm coming in as a next generation that can interface through social media to a complete different sort of new client demographic for your company. And I can wear lots of other hats to support, to justify my existence. And there's a hustle. But there's just not, the financial planning programs at the colleges, Virginia Tech, Texas Tech, here in Texas, they're doing a great job to try to facilitate that. But it's not, there's not been kind of that aha moment where like being a financial advisor is sexy. Like that's what I want to go do when I grow up. Like, kids are like, I want to be a fireman.
Yeah.
Like my kids aren't running around the house going, Dad, I want to be a financial advisor when I get older.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can change that. I feel like it's changing the perception. The challenge is, right, the perception in the media of financial advisors after 2008, after all the financial scandals, like it's not the most well-perceived profession in the industry. So we've got some work to do there. I think also, since most of the new advisors and advisors in general are part of the wirehouse channel and they're incentivized to sell product, obviously people are going to have bad experiences and they're going to say, hey, I got sold this product, I'm not super happy about it. So that also hurts the perception of our industry. So it's a challenge, right? Because we're trying to invest in the expertise side, which is, hey, get a CFP, learn the actual craft, but you still need to invest in the soft skills. Like you still need to be able to sell. You still need to be able to influence. You still need to be able to build relationships. And I think the challenge is you've got a younger generation that comes out and they're equipped with the knowledge. But as you said, they're an expense, like they're coming in and immediately you have to write them a check and say, here, this is yours, and this is coming directly out of the owner's bank account in order to support you.
And there's no proven experience.
Exactly.
So you're literally betting on the come. Mm-hmm. Is this individual going to step into my business and add value and learn it? And is there stability there? Will they be here in 5 years?
Yeah. And I think the responsibility doesn't fall on the individual. So the way I see it is it's the firm's responsibility to create a sales and marketing environment that empowers young talent to actually be successful. And I haven't seen a lot of advisory firms do that, even at the $1 billion, $2 billion, $5 billion level. I mean, generally what I've seen is they bring on a CMO who maybe has some Fortune 500 experience, and they change around the colors on their website, and they test different buttons, to see if people are going to click them a little bit more frequently. And the business development is kind of neglected. It's, the senior partners have done a good job of bringing in business, referrals are coming in, but they haven't done a good job of mapping their experience and their knowledge into a process, into a system that allows younger talent to come in and say, oh, okay, I can understand the nuance of what you're doing. Therefore, I can take that and go out and find new clients for the firm. So I think it's just this disconnect. And that's probably why a lot of these advisors who are successful in the independent channel, who don't have equity in their business, are like, wait, you guys didn't really help me outside of the fact of just giving me this platform. And I went out with my soft skills and my network and built this. I should actually participate in some of this.
And I think you're spot on. I think there's a lot of, hiring in the wrong role. So again, on the firm being active, aggressive about it, these are the roles we're looking to hire. Here are the skill sets we're looking for. And so sometimes they'll come across someone and be like, okay, well, they've got the CFP, so I'm going to throw them in this spot. Maybe they don't want to be an advisor. Maybe they want to be support.
Yeah.
Right. So it's understanding where their strength is. Let's align you there so that you can shine there.
Yeah.
But there's also an element of a younger generation looking from a different perspective. And if the principal of a firm that's sort of aging can be humble enough to sit down and engage in that dialogue, they may learn a lot. Right? You see lots of generations in other industries where the grandson got involved in the business, started running the business, and then grew it 25x.
Yeah.
And it's where did that come from? Well, they came from a different perspective. It had always been this business this way. So those fresh ideas,
got to be open to them.
That's got to be open to them.
I mean, I'm a byproduct of a failed succession plan myself. I don't know if I've shared this story with you.
That's great.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, I left Dimensional Fund Advisors at 27 and got the entrepreneurial bug, and I bought a firm up in Sacramento, California, $200 million in assets. Great firm, great people, and walked in, had no idea what to expect, and it was a really good learning experience. I was there for a year, and the first day I was there, I came into the office, and I hear this noise, and I'm like, what is that? Is there a bug in the, what's something in the blinds or something? So I walk around to the office to my right, and I see this lady, and she's just typing away on a typewriter, just from the 1960s, takes the letter, grabs it after it's done being typewritten, and then scans it, and then emails it to me. So she literally wrote a letter, scanned it into the computer, and then emailed me the typewritten letter. And that's how they communicated in the office.
Well, I sent you a letter in the mail to accept coming on this podcast. So look, there's an element of the old school that should come back.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's maybe we go there next, because I love that, because we do that in our marketing programs, is mixing the digital and the traditional media. Because it's so important right now to have that personalized human touch, especially in the client experience. So what are your thoughts on client experience? I know we're going completely deviation here, but I like this topic. For most firms, what are you seeing? What would you define as a good client experience at the advisor level? What are you seeing as far as be successful?
I'm in hundreds of offices a year. And so, I get a sense of what are they doing? Is it winning? Is it losing? I think, again, it's intention. It's not all of a sudden I've got, these clients doing $2 million in revenue and I'm just sort of doing whatever to service them. It's being very thoughtful about it. How often do I want to communicate with these clients? What's the experience like? I'm seeing companies that are, they'll do a happy hour and they'll bring their clients in and they're having drinks in the office on a Friday. And it's just sort of this family it's a different vibe.
Yeah.
So, in terms of, client experience, it's, the stickiness, I can't really comment more than that besides it's it's pretty diverse.
Yeah. What I've seen is so with technology, right, the temptation is to automate your interactions. So I've talked to firms that are let's call it $1 billion plus in assets. And they're explaining how they have automated emails that get sent out to clients for them to schedule meetings and those types of things. I actually think that's really bad. I don't think that clients should receive any form of automated communication at any time. And the reason why is they're paying us for a highly curated personal experience. They bought from our firm as a wealth management firm because that's what we're selling. That's what we should be selling. So I feel like the temptation right now is, since all these firms are offering access to technology, it's to go deeper down the rabbit hole and say, well, not only do we have access to technology, but we're actually going to create so much efficiency that we're automating away the reason for us to be involved in the client's life in the first place. So we've actually gone completely in the other direction. Like, we've automated all of our mid and back office functions internally within the company. And it's not from investing like millions of dollars in Salesforce. It's like a complete waste of money. You just have API integrations. You can hire developers in Ukraine. I mean, you built the tech platform, you know the drill. If you need to create some efficiencies between software, but it's really understanding that you need to be very, very personal and intentional with your communications with your clients. So like, we'll routinely send them like handwritten notes. We'll rip out a page from like Austin Magazine if like one of our clients is like a blues, fan, and we'll just like put a little note on there and send it to them in the mail. So it's just,
that's a lost art.
Yeah, man. But I feel like that's what people need right now.
No, that's, the experience that you talk about. I mean, I'll kind of share a funny story. And I shared this on social media, but like my 10-year-old son has been wanting a lizard. Right. And so we're like, look, you got to make money. So he wanted to go sell lemonade. And last weekend he went out and he bought 2 things of lemonade. They were $2 each.
Okay.
And he, dilutes it, half water, half lemonade. And over Saturday and Sunday, he made $50 from one of the canisters of lemonade. So that was $2 investment. He made $50. And I went over to pick him up Sunday evening and I was like, look, dinner's ready. He's like, Dad, I got a little bit of lemonade left. And so I kind of pulled over to the side and we took him to the kind of the old neighborhood where we lived, and he was at a corner, kind of a busy road. And I'm like, oh, what's he doing? He goes over and he stands on top of a park bench. He's got his sign and he's flagging cars down. They're honking. Cars are driving down the block, turning around, coming back. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, this 10-year-old is creating this experience. These people are flipping around. They're coming back. They're getting lemonade from him. The lemonade is good. The product is good.
Yeah.
The price is right. But he's creating this experience.
Love it.
So he made all this money. And I'm like,
is he looking
how
for a
many
job?
times? Exactly. It's my succession one day.
Hey, Model FAs, I know that you're enjoying this episode. I wanted to talk to you about a program that we're releasing. It's called the Model FA Accelerator. It is an intensive experience where we're going to bring you to Austin. We're going to help you solve the biggest problems in your practice: how to pick a niche, how to build a consistent marketing strategy, a sales process that actually converts, and how to scale it all up. So if you're curious about that, go to www.modelfa.com/accelerator. Book your call, and we'll talk to you soon. I love that, man, because you can take and look at it from the other side. It's like, well, you could take automated lemonade provider with a really, really good product that's just sitting there on the street corner, and you can walk up and go get lemonade from it. But how many people are actually going to stop there and put $1 in the machine to get lemonade on a street corner? Like zero. That's right. So I love that example. Put yourself out there. Yeah. I'm a firm believer that the advisor, regardless of the size of the firm, the advisor is always the product. So you need to make sure that your advisors are featured. You need to raise their visibility, their awareness in the community, and promote their value proposition. Because at the end of the day, like when somebody is sitting in a meeting, it's like, yes, the firm needs to be credible. There needs to be that backstop there of credibility and trust so that they believe that their money's not going to evaporate into thin air. But what the consumer is buying is the person or the people, right? So that's where the expert team and that type of stuff comes in, makes them even more comfortable.
And there's some of the advisors that draws them to leave. They're like, you know what? I mean, maybe I did come in a supporting role and I built up confidence being in that role, and I'd like to maybe be out there. And the principal of the firm's like, no, this is my firm, right? You can't be about you. Ooh, it's about me.
I've seen that.
And so again, there's some of those pivots that take place. And it's like, okay, well, I've learned a lot from being on the inside. Maybe I'm willing to take the risk to blow out of here and do it myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's a good risk and sometimes it's not. I've seen a lot of it. I've seen advisors go out on their own, and you've obviously seen a lot more of this than I have, but I've seen advisors go out on their own and they do it for the wrong reasons. They do it because their incentive structure wasn't appropriate in their old firm, or, maybe the process was broken and they wanted to do financial planning in a way that they felt comfortable with, or sell products and services that they felt should be priced in a different way. But then they get out on their own and now they're a business owner. And now they got to worry about marketing. They got to worry about sales. They got to worry about human capital management. They got to worry about all the stuff that comes along with being a professional business owner. And I feel like today is, I mean, I don't have a benchmark to what it was like maybe 20 or 30 years ago, but I feel like the environment today is like hyper competitive. I feel like with how free flowing capital is right now, and with all the consolidation, just digital media in general, like things seem to be accelerating very quickly. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you feel like we're in a different environment than maybe we were 10 years ago, or are things about the same? Like what's your pulse on
Yeah,
that?
I mean, it has gotten much more competitive, and some of it's just, social media. 20 years ago, we didn't have that.
Yeah.
Right. I was chatting about that last night, like about, sort of online dating, when that became sort of like, that was sort of conceptually, that was the new thing, right? That's how you met somebody new. You go back 20 years ago and it was, seminars and independent advisor was very rare, and the brands is what was known.
Yeah.
And now there's become more knowledge at the retail client level about, wealth management could be independent, and it could be, this wealth management business. So there's become a lot more transparency there. And then there's a lot more transparency around regulation, around different models. So the retail customer's like, okay, I talk to my friends all the time. I'm like, how does your advisor charge you? Like, well, they're doing this. And I'm like, well, you know that there's an alternative. Like, you could do this. And they're like, no, I didn't know that. So sometimes you just want to kind of reverse engineer it and say, well, gosh, the customer should go back and say, hey, here would be my preference.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're directing advisors and you're having these conversations about like what's a good home for them, like what are the answers that generally come up? Do you find that a lot of times you're placing them with independent broker dealers? Do you find that you're placing them at large RIAs? Do you find that often you're saying, hey, based on the landscape, you should probably start your own RIA? Is it like 100% variable based on the advisor?
It is not. It's individual. I mean, and it's really like, as a firm, when you meet with your client and you assess their risk and, their tolerance around all those things and what's appropriate for them, it's not like cookie cutter that, well, I don't really care, they're all going to get this.
Yeah.
And that's something that I learned with one of the first cold calls that I made close to 20 years ago to an advisor, when I was like, look, what's missing? What do you wish you had? The guy was at Merrill Lynch. He's like, Ryan, I've never had a recruiter call and ask me what I want or need.
Wow.
They're just calling to tell me who I need to talk to. And I just remember thinking, well, that's like a doctor. And you come into their room, the waiting room, or the exam room, you're not asking the symptoms. Like, I don't really need to know what's going on with you. I'm just going to give you the shot. We're all good, and we're going to move on.
They got the pad out.
It's the same around financial advice. So it's kind of really shifting that gear.
So talk me through the FA Match platform. So 10 years providing independent matchmaking, consulting for advisors, and you got the idea for this marketplace where advisors can vet out their own options. So talk me through how that idea came to bear and what's going on with the FA Match platform right now.
Yeah, no, it goes back to that call. It goes back to, that was early days, me cutting my teeth, literally cold calling advisors saying, hey, are you happy? Right? What's missing?
Yeah.
And then they'd be like, you know what? I'm really not happy. Well, gosh, can we get to know each other? Can you trust me enough to trust that maybe I might know of a firm that might be a better fit? And it just stuck with me that advisors, they're not advocating for themselves enough, right? They're sort of more passive. I always say that an advisor, their career, their clients, but they're typically riding shotgun regarding their career. Someone else is driving the car. And I'm like, they should be driving. They should be advocating. They should be, they have these clients that are sticky, that generate this revenue. And all these firms, they want a piece of that revenue. And they're all throwing their value prop out.
Yep.
And so that's what really drove me to create my consulting business in 2006. And in doing that, I love doing it. I'm working with advisors. But I spend 2-3 hours onboarding an advisor as a client. All the due diligence calls are like an hour a pop.
Yeah.
It's not scalable.
It's emotionally draining too, I'm sure, because you're like,
yeah, but I love it. I mean, I love talking to somebody that's like, you know what, I think I'm done, but they don't know what they don't know. And I'm like, well, I actually happen to know what you don't know, and so this is great, right? So we were able to really engage in a great partnership. But I wanted to create automation. I wasn't able to touch enough lives and help enough advisors on a one-to-one basis. So I said, could we create a technology that allows for that advisor to be in control? And the 3 elements that are most important are privacy, transparency, and control. And so in our technology platform, that's what we've created to instill to that advisor. And then the firm gets the same benefits on the other side.
Love it. So as far as privacy is concerned, if you were browsing to see what options were available, your firm isn't going to be able to log in there and say, oh, we see that Brian's on the platform looking for another firm that he could potentially join.
Every single user type is private. unless they send a connection request to the other side, and it has to be reciprocated. So if you're an advisor and I'm a firm, and I send a connection request to you, you need to reciprocate that for us to find out who one another is.
Okay. So is there like an NDA component to that as far as like if you're on the platform, like if you signed up for the platform, does it say you are bound by this NDA or something not to disclose any of the matches outside
Our
of
privacy policy is really tight.
I got you.
Absolutely. And again, it is the single most important factor because an advisor, I'm like, they know when they're not happy before anyone else. Then usually their spouse is like the close second that finds out, right? They're going home and they're like, gosh, and you're like, what? Every day's a bad day at work. Like, you should do something about that. Okay. That's part of it.
What do the user metrics look like? I know that you mentioned that there's obviously different types of advisors. They search for different reasons. There's different types of firms. They're looking for different reasons. I mean, how is the advisor set up for success when they join the FA Match platform? Like before it was you bridging that gap and saying, hey, I've got this knowledge. I'm going to ask you these questions. I'm going to make sure that you land in the right home. What are you doing inside of the platform to ensure that they get hopefully a similar experience, but just in a more leveraged fashion?
It is more leverage. It's got scale. I'm obviously still very involved. I mean, we're a lean startup.
Okay.
Right. So I'm involved. I'm doing calls with advisors. I talked to a recruiting partner this morning. I'm doing 2 calls tomorrow with 2 advisors. So I'll speak to them, address any of their concerns, get them registered on the platform. We'll do a screen share. I give them control. We walk through it. I hold their hand and navigate it because we're really shifting the way that the business has always been done.
Yep.
To say you're the advisor, you have 100 million in client assets that generates $1 million in revenue. There's value in you.
Yep. Take
control. Don't be passive anymore, right? We're giving you the keys to drive, not ride shotgun. And so it's all about that and creating that value for them to drive that connectivity with the firms.
What do the user metrics look like right now? How many people are on the platform to partner with advisors versus advisors looking to partner with firms?
So we have a total of 325 users across both sides.
Okay.
$3.5 billion is where we are in assets on the advisor side.
And when did you start again?
We launched February.
Oh wow, that's
publicly.
Pretty good growth. 325 users.
But I'm trying to build a sustainable business. So I'm trying to plant the right seeds. I'm trying to create the right relationships. I'm viewing it as more than just transaction business. Yeah. Right? It is a relationship business. That's why our technology just scales everything at the top of the filter, and it brings it all down to a one-to-one qualitative discussion.
Got it.
So we have $3.5 billion in motion. The average advisor on our platform is around $65 million in assets, and we're just trying to nurture those relationships, service them. That's what you do when you're a lean startup. What we can control is the experience, the support, and then we're trying to communicate that out into the marketplace to the extent we have the budget to do it.
Okay. And you probably don't have a lot of data to this point, but in your experience as a consultant, like from the time where an advisor becomes, I don't want to say unhappy, but just interested in shopping around to when they actually make a decision, have you seen any general rules of thumb as far as how long that process usually takes?
It is historically 6 to 9 months from the point of okay, you've been unhappy for a while.
Okay.
And then you internalize it.
And you're like,
I
want to make a decision.
Oh, you know what? Maybe I should do something about it. And it may be prompted from a recruiter calling you. That's like, hey, are you happy? Like I used to do. It's like, no, I'm not happy. They engage. And frankly, that's why recruiters are a very important partner to us. We're like, look, there's most of the advisors you talk to, you don't have contracts with firms to make an introduction. But we're scaling that side of it, and we can be that support infrastructure for you to help you close more opportunities, to help more advisors.
Oh, I like that. I like that model. So you've got a free sales force in essence, right? You've got these recruiters that they want the same outcome as you. They want the advisor who is currently in the wrong seat to be in the right seat. And then you're creating a list of firms that are vetted on the platform and saying,
and it's standardized. Yeah. So what we're doing is we're saying, listen, we're scaling the agreements. You don't want to be in the agreement game, right? You want to be in the talking to an advisor, finding out if they're happy or not. You refer them to us, we take over everything else. And we continue to scale that for them. So that's exactly, yeah. And some of our recruiting partners it's getting to where it's almost exclusive. Every advisor they get in front of, they're kicking to us.
Wow. What percentage of your business do you think is going to be driven from recruiters sending advisors versus advisors reaching out on their own? I mean, it's probably pretty early innings.
It's early. It is really early innings. We've got a number of recruiting partners now that we're engaging with. And again, I'm supporting them. I'm like, look, I'll get on a call with you and the advisor. I want you to understand, that I'm going to nurture that relationship, but we're going to drive them to this automated platform. right? And let them to understand how they benefit from it. So that's some of the user experience that it's brand new.
Did you raise money to start FA Match, or was it self-funded, or how did you have
So I
structured it?
funded the development. We started our first line of code January 2018. I funded that with a good friend that's my co-founder and the CTO.
Nice.
But he had come out of a startup, and so I was like, gosh, I can give you equity. And he's like, dude, no way.
No
the last startup
way.
went to crap, so you're going to have to pay me. I'm like, you're getting me.
No
so I
pet
paid
rocks.
him, and then we got ourselves to kind of a beta point, and we raised money. And we're in the process. We'll raise another round that we plan to close this next month.
Congrats,
and so
man.
we're just, but you crawl, then you walk.
Yeah.
So that's
I love that you bootstrapped it. That's good stuff. And then, prove the model, get the product out to the market, test it, validate it, and now it's, off to the races. So what other tips would you say, or what other tips do you have for advisors that are in a situation where they're starting to feel like they might not be, like, what's the first place they should turn, right? So a matching platform could be like, hey, I've decided that I'm going to put myself out there and I'm looking for other opportunities, but how does an advisor really know if they're in the right
you talked
situation?
about a while ago, like, there is so much information available. You can go out and you can Google and you can look at these research studies and you can learn a ton to the extent you want that. But I think recruiters are an incredible resource because it's what we do all day, every day. We deal with advisors, different personality types, different business models, different needs. And so that's a great resource to go to just really sort of level set. Like, are you just not happy today, but you're not going to do anything with it? Or have you been unhappy for the last year and you're ready to do something, but you want to do the right something?
Got it.
I think recruiters provide a great resource there. And then what we're doing is we're just trying to provide that support infrastructure.
So I'm not even familiar with the advisor recruiting landscape. And when you say recruiters, are you talking about independent recruiters that are not part of a specific firm? Because obviously, if
you're exact. Yeah, independent recruiter.
How many independent recruiters are there?
175.
Really? Are they all kind of on their own, or is there a large firm that does
There's
it?
some that are one man, solopreneur.
Okay. Yeah.
Like a standalone single advisor.
Okay.
There's some that are really large companies with big teams.
Got it. So it just really depends on what your flavor is as far as what you're looking for.
And again, I mean, like for me, when I started my consulting business doing advisor recruiting, when my first kid was 2 months old in Southern California. And I was just like, I've been inside of a company, representing a company. And I was like, gosh, I want to represent the advisor. So you just take that risk.
How many of your advisor clients are like repeat customers? Like once you place them in a firm, do they usually stay there for life? Do they end up moving on? Do they grow out of the firm? Like what would you say that as far as on the consulting side, you have repeat business versus new business? Like how does that work for you?
Never had repeat business in terms of an advisor that I helped transition. Because my philosophy is that if you look at an advisor's life cycle, there's 3 most meaningful moves they'll make in their life. One is sort of choosing where they might build it or kind of plugging into it. Mm-hmm. It then becomes scaling it, and then it becomes monetizing it. And so my consulting was always, I want to work with you 3 times in your life cycle, but not repeat for the same use. I don't want to help you figure out you should go here with your business and your clients, and then in 3 years churn you out and move you somewhere else to make more money. That just never was my model.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if you're in the moving business every 5 years, you have an unstable client base.
Yep.
From an asset perspective, you could say you have a discounted value, right? Because the retention off of those clients. So you want to really, I use like, okay, you got to figure out where you're going to build the house.
Yep.
Then you want to add some additions to the house. Then you want to sell it.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I love that. Yeah, I was hoping you would say that if you were like, yeah, like 80% of my business is repeat. Usually 2 to 3 years later, they come back looking to change.
Exactly.
So it's good. It's good to know that it's a lot of new clients, probably referrals too, right? People that send their friends. It's like, hey, Ryan did a good service by me, and you should check him out.
So I am 100% referral.
Okay.
The advisors that I have worked with for a long time, they come from just friendships in the business, people that I've gotten to know that trust that I'm going to get on a call, I'm going to engage with them, I'm actually going to deliver on what I say. I'm honest, transparent.
Can't ask for much more than that, man, in this business for sure. Well, Ryan, I really appreciate you coming on the show and talking about your new platform, FA Match. I'm excited that it's had early success. It sounds like it's a model that advisors really need to vet out their options. It's independent. It provides the leverage, the privacy, the transparency on both sides, which is pretty great. So congratulations on that. Before we sign off, do you have any other just one takeaway or one tip that you would have for the listeners as far as transition and thinking about landing in the right spot or building their business? Anything that you think would be valuable to the audience?
The thing that I would share is any decision that you make regarding the business that you're doing and how you're doing it should tether to the care to the client. So don't get sucked up in the weeds about, I can make more money here doing this. Think about the client model and where can you be happiest. So I tell people, I'm like, life is short. You spend most of your hours in the work that you do, not with the family that you love. And so if you're going to not be with your family, love what it is you do and love how it is you do it and love who you do it with.
I think that's great advice, man. Looking forward to grabbing a beer tonight. Thanks for making the trip to Austin.
You got it, man. Thank you.
Hopefully have you on the show again soon.